For me, the B25 has always been the best gun that Browning has ever produced. And you all know we have a bit of a soft spot for them because we've done a couple of videos with them over the last couple of years. Now, the 30-inch guns have always sold better. However, the lightweight game 27.5-inch has always been my favourite. And lucky enough, I've got one of each with us today. So I've pulled out the B2g Lightweight game first. These are my absolute favourite. I shot the D2C that we've got in the shop earlier this year. I absolutely love them. I think they are the best gun that Browning have ever produced. So we're going to run up the Sporting quickly. It is absolutely heaving, and then we'll take the Sporter onto the fit ass. Well, the reason I love these so much is they are so manoeuvrable. Like up on stand 7, you've got really good selection of different targets. You've got fast, you've got slow, and this handles all of it really well, and that's because they're beautifully well balanced. And coming in at probably £7, they're really light. It is kicking a bit with them 27 super fasts, but nothing we can't handle. Oh. The B2g, which is what we've got here, I wouldn't class it as the entry level into the B25 because obviously you had the A1, but into the nice B25 range. Now, as obviously I've got the lightweight game, they're available in a Sporter, a Skeet, they're even available in a Trap. So there's a big variety, and again, a huge variety in engraving styles. Obviously you have everything from the A1 black action up to the really high grade side plated guns. Pull. So, I've got the B2g Sporter's 30-inch. This has got the fattest rib on it I have ever seen. I've got no idea how I'm going to get on with this. Slightly heavier out the front, so a bit left-hand heavy, but exactly the same stock dimensions. So, time for some fit ass. Pull. Oh, didn't swing at it. Even though it is quite front hand heavy with that big rib, it moves really positively well. I'm not having to try too hard with it. It's carrying itself really well. And obviously that additional weight up front, it just soaks up those super fast quite well. And the brakes that we are getting are absolutely phenomenal. Pull. Even though that lightweight game is definitely my favourite, this is really nice to shoot. Quite like the slightly bigger forend, the pistol grip. However, if you could shove that 19-hour game grip on these 30-inch barrels, I think it would make for an absolute perler of a gun. So, last couple of shots, we'll head back to the shop and we'll have a chat about the specs. Pull. So before we dive into the specs, I will put a link in the description below to either Gunstar or our website where you'll be able to view these guns. They are both online at $19.95. So we shall start with the Sporter first. 30 inch, it is half and half choke, 2 3/4 inch chambers with that big fat Browning 16mm rib. Now, I'm not a big fan of fat ribs, but I actually quite like that. It just put the weight of the gun just slightly forward. Just seemed to carry itself really nicely. Before I get carried away, 14.5 inch stock, comes in at £7.12 ounces. Now, on to my favourite. So this is a B2g Lightweight game, exactly the same as this, just in a different specification. So this comes with 27.5 inch barrels, a 7 to 5mm tapered game rib. It is 2 3/4 inch chambered. It is quarter and improved cylinder choke. So you've got about 11 thou and 8 thou of choke. Again, 14.5 inch stock, and it comes in at £6.12. Now, even though this is on the light side, it just feels beautiful to shoot. And I mean, it goes to show that you don't need a lot of choke. We were shooting obviously with the set chokes that are in it because it's fixed. And on stand 7, this was just annihilating the longer stuff. I didn't know what spec these guns were until we have come in here and I've measured them prior to doing this video. So I was actually quite surprised to find out that it had got sort of more open chokes on it. Now for me, if I could have one of those in 30 inch with that rib and it weighed 7.5 pounds, I would have one of these in an absolute heartbeat. It's one of those guns that every time we get one in, and we've done it with the D2C that we've got on, and we did it with our earlier Browning video that we did last year, I pick a lightweight game up and I just shoot nicely with it. I'm not saying I pull any trees up because I'm not saying I'm anything better than average, but it's just one of those guns that I just pick up and I feel comfortable with and I get on well with. And it's really annoying because Dad always says to me that I just need to get one and shoot one. But for me, obviously, it's just the weight. They're a little bit too light, but it just always works for me. They're one of those guns that whenever we get one in, I'm like, right, I've got to get this out. I've got to go and shoot it because I know that I'm going to get on with it really well. On to the Sporter. Now, as I said, I'm not a big fan of the fat ribs on that, but that 16mm Browning rib, actually, I do quite like it. I know you're not meant to look at it, but we're reviewing it, so I did. Having that weight slightly further forward in the gun just meant that it just carried itself a little bit better. So especially on the longer targets, on the FITAS, I felt that I had a bit more positive drive, if that's the right word. I don't know whether it was just because it's a heavier gun and the weight was slightly forward, but I just felt that I had a little bit more control over the gun. And I think for targets like we had on the FITAS layout, that was perfect. Whereas the targets on the Sporting, there were some nice, fast, quick, whippy targets that you had to get to quickly and get in front of, where that lightweight game just came in perfectly. Now, the B25 market is not wonderful at the moment, and it annoys me a bit, and it's mainly probably because I've been brought up shooting them, but the younger generation do not seem to appreciate or understand what these is. Now, this is it's not a fully handmade gun, but there is a lot of handwork goes into it. So they're engraved by hand and finished by hand. Obviously, components, actions, and everything are made on machine, but then they would be fitted together and put together by hand. We don't have that kind of skill set anymore in a lot of the big manufacturing companies. And I think if you put this next to a modern Browning, that this would piss all over it. And especially just the reliability of them. I mean, obviously we deal with a lot of these because we love them. I mean, back years ago in like the 90s, Dad was one of Browning's top dealers in the UK for selling these. So we have a real soft spot for it. And it's probably why I have a love for them, because I was brought up shooting one of these. I had a 27.5 inch skeet gun, and I moved on to a 30 inch C2g 20 bore, which I absolutely loved. So I have a real soft spot for these, and so does Dad, which is why obviously we keep them in the shop. But the market on them has dropped, and I think it's because that younger generation just don't appreciate what this is. They think a Browning should be a 30 inch or 32 inch steel-proof multi-choke cannon for taking big heavy shells. And these were a premium gun in the day. You know, they fetched a fantastic value, not out of range of the majority of people, but you were getting a premium gun for a real affordable amount of money. And that's why I love them. They're just, somebody's physically put blood, sweat, tears and effort into this. And I think that's the most important thing, is that the craftsmanship that goes into this. And we never normally think about this, but somebody has spent 10, 20, 30 years honing their skill set to be able to engrave something like that, because it's done by hand and signed by the engraver. And it just, to me, it gives the gun soul, because somebody has sweated over doing that. They wanted to produce something that is beautiful, elegant, nice, and reliable. And they did. And I honestly don't think that a lot of the big manufacturers nowadays don't have that skill set anymore. I'm not by any means knocking anybody, but they always say, like, if you were going to buy a Holland or a Purdy, like a 1930s, 1940s was the year to buy one, because the skill set then was at such a high level, and the guns that were produced in that time for those English gun makers were of the absolute finest. And I think it's the same with these. You pick up a 70s or early 80s gun, it's going to be absolutely done down to a T, the craftsmanship that goes into them. And I think a lot of the shooting fraternity need to maybe see it and understand it. They maybe have not been educated on the fact that this is what these guns are. It's not just to me, it's not just a Browning. It's a B25. I never call these, I know it's really strange to say it, but I would never say, oh, I've got Browning whatever in the shop. It would be, I've got a B25. That's what it would be, because I kind of separate these away from the 325, 425, 525, 725 actions and the 825 actions, because they would just produce so differently. And I think that's really something that is maybe not sold to people anymore. That is, they need educating, that these guns were they were produced in a factory by hand. Yes, okay, barrels were made and actions were made and everything, but like I've already said, they were put together and engraved and finished and checkered and stocked by hand. There was a lot of craftsmanship that went into these guns, and you don't see it nowadays. And I think that there really should be some more appreciation. And you can see it in me. Like, I have a huge passion for these guns because I was brought up shooting them, and I understand what they are. And obviously Dad has I keep saying it, a big soft spot for them. So for me, it was drilled into me as to what these were, and it's really stuck with me. And that is why when I pick one of those up, there's just, you pick a lot of guns up and they're numb. The modern big sporters, you pick them up nowadays and they are just numb, they're dead. That's got life and soul and something about it. And it's one of those guns that there isn't words for, but anybody that's a shooter and a bit of a gun nut like me will understand that you sometimes pick something up and you just, you get that, it gives you some excitement. There's just, you feel like you've got something worth handling between your hands. And I know obviously I keep picking that one up, and the lightweight games have always been my favourite, but even that, it's one of those guns that just unassumingly picked it up and broke some clays and just really enjoyed shooting it. It just handled well. It just felt nice between the hands. There was just something about it, a spark, whatever you want to call it. It had that. It really did have that. And I think that's, to me, why they're so special to me. Is you pick them up, you know that somebody has put their lifetime achievements into that. And I think it's very important. So, as I've already said, follow the link in the description below. You'll be able to view them on either our website or on Gunstar. And we will see you next week with another video. Thank you, guys.